Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another Top Cut breakdown video. Today we're going over the Pro Play Tour qualifier event that took place in Houston, Texas over the weekend. One of the very last events that we have pre-banlist, pre-set 14. So we'll be talking about a lot of these decks in terms of their current format status, but also how they're probably going to fare going into set 14 with a lot of the changes that are happening. So with that being said, guys, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. And if you guys want to help support the channel, there are many ways down in the description to do so, but particularly today, if you guys want to start competing in competitive events, maybe try and step your game up, check out the Patreon down in the description below. You can read the articles I post there to see where my head is at competitively in the game, and you can also inquire about some one-on-one coaching with yours truly if you're interested in that. Anyways, let's break down the event. All right, so we have the PPT qualifier in Houston. We had 79 players, so really solid turnout, especially when you consider IRL events as of late during like the quote-unquote COVID era. 79 players is probably one of the highest that we've seen, if not the highest, for an IRL event, so that's awesome. All right, so starting off, we have 3 Blue Baby in Top Cut, which is absolutely insane. Blue Baby going on to win the event. We'll talk about that more in just a bit. 2 Invoker, so already we see heavy control in this format, in this area, right? So 3 Blue Baby, 2 Invoker, super heavy on the control. 3 King Piccolo, which can teeter between like mid-range and control even, so that's another really solid showing for this deck, especially it might be one of the last events for it to be at full power. 2 Vegex and 2 Dark Broly, we'll definitely be talking about that. I have a pretty decent amount of thoughts on those. 1 Mecha Frieza, 1 Soul Striker, 1 Launch, and 1 King Vegeta, rounding off our top 16. Very diverse, as we're used to seeing, even though these ban lists are coming into place in just a few weeks, and a lot of people have some gripes with the game, myself included. I still think we're in a great spot. Yes, some of the stuff is a bit powerful, maybe a bit too powerful, but when you can still say all these decks are very viable, like I don't see any deck in this top 16 that I would say is a fluke. Like all these decks have the capability to do well in events. Maybe not every single one of them is likely to win an event, but these are all super legitimate decks. Even in some other events where we see super cool rogue strategies, we know those are kind of like one-off situations, right? But here, these decks are all definitely top contenders. Some of that might change after the ban list. Let's start breaking it down a little more in depth. All right, so in the finals, we had a Blue Baby and Invoker matchup. This is kind of crazy because I feel like we really don't see control decks going at it in the finals of many events. I think it's usually going to be like, you know, there might be one control player in the finals of an event, like maybe a Blue Baby in the finals, maybe an Invoker in the finals, maybe a Sin Shenron in control in the finals. That's going back a little bit further in time, though. But usually the other deck on the other side of the table is usually going to be either mid-range or control. I think mid-range has the best streak in terms of, you know, winning events, making the finals. But yeah, we usually don't see a control mirror match, so this is definitely really interesting. Now, how this matchup plays out, I'm not going to act like I have a ton of experience because I'm not really a Baby player or an Invoker player, but I have some insight as to how this matchup probably plays out. And I kind of think it's a tough one for Invoker. Let's look at why. So, Baby, the type of deck it is, it's just completely reactive, and it doesn't do anything proactive until really turn 7, where it plays Turning the Tide. So, in that regard, the deck is full of negates and full of counterplays. Invoker can be similar, where it's really just proactive. It can put a bit more pressure on, I guess you could say, because the leader can reach 15k on the unawakened side when attacking, and your win cons come down a bit earlier than Blue Babies. Your secret rare coming down on turn 5 potentially, and your burn damage can also come down on turn 5, turn 6, depending on how good your setup is. But with that in mind, using your leader effect in Invoker to snipe an answer out of Baby's hand is almost gonna be like irrelevant, because they're gonna have tons of negates. They're gonna almost always have more than one negate for your victory strike, so victory strike's not a super valid option in that matchup. One thing I will say is Invoker can stall Blue Baby out. Blue Baby does not have great self-awakening, so you can theoretically victory strike them at 8 life, but again, they're probably gonna have a ton of negates in hand for that victory strike that you play. And Baby can self-awaken and Planet Tuffle, although it's not really good, because you essentially what happens is you're like critting a life practically. You're not literally critting a life, but you're losing card advantage by self-awakening Planet Tuffle, and maybe Baby has to do that in the matchup. That could be a way to do it, but besides that, they have plenty of answers to your victory strike, right? On the flip side, you're trying to go for your burn damage, play a Rival Seeker, and Baby is just chock full of counterplays. You have things like Godsling Technique Trunks. There's even a 3-cost Baby that puts Rival Seeker to the bottom of the deck. And yeah, again, you can snipe it out of their hands. So maybe if they only have one copy of that Baby counterplay, they're not going to be able to bottom deck your Rival Seeker. But even Godsling Technique Trunks, once they get their different unisons online, turn 3, turn 4, depending on what unison they're playing, that can just still pose too many answers to where the Invoker leader is just not able to rip those answers out of the hand. And once Baby gets turn 7, there is pretty much nothing Invoker can do about turning the tide, wiping their hand away, and killing them from there. So with those things in mind, I think it's a pretty strong matchup for Blue Baby. But if you guys have more experience with it, I definitely want to know what you guys think in the comments below. But yeah, Invoker, obviously seeing a huge nerf going into the next format. Probably not going to see many people playing it. I think they still have the potential to do 3 really solid damage on turn 5, 2 of those being burned. So let's say you go to turn 5, play Rival Seeker, go into your 6-drop energy, I think it's Energy Explosion Goku or something like that. You attack them for a 35k, and if they don't have a negate, they're taking that damage. And again, you can snipe the negate out of their hand, or even a counterplay if you're afraid of one. So then you can activate your 1 Catastrophic Blow, which is going to be set to a limit 1 after the errata, and then your 6-drop Goku will trigger to burn them for an additional damage. So Invoker in that aspect becomes far more fair, where maximum you can only burn for 2 damage on a turn, I believe is how it'll work now. So with that in mind, it becomes a lot more fair, and you're not going to see any more like burning from 6-0 or even 7-0 in some like ridiculous circumstances. And I'm totally cool with that. I mean, you guys know me, I definitely am biased against Invoker. I think it's pretty lame to lose to it. But with that in mind, it definitely becomes a more fair burn strategy. But it's still unique in the sense that it's the only burn strategy in the game that can burn you below a certain life threshold. Like I think Red Yamcha can do it too with some cards, but it's not really popular. Most of the burn cards we see, like Young Invaders for example, you have to be above a certain life threshold, right? Invoker is one of those unique ones that doesn't really care about the life threshold, so it's still going to have a pretty unique set of win conditions. Baby, surprisingly enough, goes completely untouched going in the next format. I think it's still going to be one of the best, if not the best, blue decks. I think Soul Striker gets a lot of tools that it can use to compete with Baby. I think prior to this, Baby has a pretty distinct edge over Soul Striker in current format, but in post banless set 14 format, I think Soul Striker actually might have some really solid tools to possibly overtake that best blue deck spot, but Blue Baby is still going to be super strong. Moving along, talking about King Piccolo, man, how the mighty are probably going to fall. Drum is getting limited to 1 going into the next format, and I do think it's going to spell trouble for King Piccolo. I just don't see it being able to survive as much. Now, don't get me wrong, Violent Rays is still insane, Topo is still insane, but is the deck going to have enough consistency to put cards in the life? Probably. Is the deck going to have enough ways to spam the board? Maybe. I mean, one of your demon clans has unique, and now Drum essentially kind of has unique, even though it's just 1 in your deck, period. So maybe you're not gonna be able to spam the board quite as well, and maybe you're not gonna be able to meet your win con quite as well, but who knows? I mean, maybe King Piccolo will be able to be versatile enough to where it can adapt to the 1 drum. I'm not gonna go out and say it kills the deck and makes it unplayable, but it's definitely a pretty severe power nerf. So I'm gonna be very curious to see if people still continue to play King Piccolo going into next format. Maybe the 6-drop win condition can come back and see some meta contention with all the open spaces left by Drum Reign of Terror. Then we have Vegex and Dark Broly. I've given you guys my thoughts on these in the past. I really don't think the nerfs kill these decks. They obviously nerf their power to some degree, right? But Vegex only milling 3 instead of 5. I think it's still going to be one of the top black decks in the format because it continues to mill on the Awakened side. And that's a really unique thing to black mill leaders that want to use this like low to the ground overwhelm stuff, because there are a lot of cards in your deck that get value when they're milled. And once you flip in a leader like SS4 Goku or SS4 Gohan, you stop milling on your Awakened side, so you stop seeing those cards that net you value when they're milled, right? So Vegex, I think, will still be very good. I'm not going to say it's busted or anything, but I think it's still going to be very good. Dark Broly, same thing. I mean, they basically just limited a bit of its defensive potential, and I guess a bit of your shotgun potential on the leader going for game, but I think you can change the deck to where you play a very minimal amount of 0 combo power cards, and you just play more of the better 30k black battle cards, and even some of the lower power black battle cards like True Fighting Spirit, your super combos, the Bardock Nimbus card, which I'm forgetting the name of at the moment. But anyways, yeah, I think you trim the lineup to where you just play like only your super essential Dark Brolys, like 4 Uncontrollable Berserker, 4 Realm Ravager, maybe 2, maybe 3 of the blocker. Probably cut all the Toas, but that's fine. You just play 4 Parasitic Ball, make sure you draw it. and the deck will probably be fine. I'm gonna assume, really. I don't think this. I think Dark Broly comes out of the ban list much less effective than Vegex for sure, and I definitely did not want to see that, because Dark Broly kind of warps the format in a way where it has a lot of good answers to it. Every color has answers to Dark Broly, but you kind of have to play those answers, otherwise you're in trouble. Next up, we have Mecha Frieza, and we know that Universe 9 Assemble is being banned going into next format. I think Mecha Frieza is going to see a very, very big power nerf as a result of this. I don't think the deck is dead by any means. I think we're still going to have a lot of people that are going to experiment with it and play with it, but it's going to be clearly less powerful without Unite Assemble letting it draw so many crazy amounts of cards. That's just kind of obvious, but I'm not really sure if I think Mecha is going to, you know, completely vanish from the meta scene, or if it's going to still maybe, you know, put a stake in the ground and be somewhat of a maybe rogue, maybe tier 2 type of deck. You know, on that one, time will tell. And then we have Soul Striker. We're talking here, this list that was played at this event in particular was a skillless Gohan variant of Soul Striker. I've talked about it before, where I really like how you can play that engine in this deck, because you can just play Goku Nimbus Master, which is a 1 energy combo red card that plays a skillless from your deck during your opponent's turn, which is great for a deck like Soul Striker. Defend the damage and play a skillless. Yeah, it's kind of crazy, because Soul Striker is a leader that can use a lot of these blue shells better than their intended leaders can. Like, we've seen many builds of like Soul Striker Bojack, Soul Striker skillless Goku, or skillless Gohan rather. So yeah, Soul Striker maybe is a bit too good in terms of being the best generic blue leader, but you know, time will tell. It only gets better in set 14, especially with cards like Tapion Calamity Challenger and the new Tapion Unison. So yeah, definitely expect to see more Soul Striker for sure. And then wrapping it up today, guys, we have Launch and King Vegeta, and what I really want to talk about here is Red going into set 14. Red still seems insanely strong. Red as a color really didn't see a hit. Many people were expecting maybe a limiter ban to Piccolo New Ruler, maybe an errata, or even a ban to Piccolo Jr. Descendant of the King, that Unison that's just so crazy strong. These two red decks, I think King Vegeta going into next format is still insanely good. Possibly, maybe the best red deck. Just comparing it to like Gohan and Jiren coming on set 14, I think those decks are pretty good, maybe even really good. But I think King Vegeta just kind of outclasses them in aggro potential and even value you can get on a lot of the cards you play. Launch started off this set and last set even really, really strong, but it's kind of fallen off as time has gone on. I think it's just due to the fact that it's a really low power leader, and that kind of runs into issues with different aggressive strategies. But it's still a deck that can draw a lot of cards. It's probably looking pretty well positioned going into next format. It might also just be that like King Piccolo does what Launch does better, and that's fill the role of like a reg defensive mid-range deck. I think King Piccolo just does that better. So with the nerfs going into set 14, Launch might even take a step up. But yeah, guys, that's going to wrap up what I want to talk about today. I think this is a pretty cool discussion talking about the current and next format. Of course, as always, I want to know in the comments below what you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.